What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. 3 weeks left to go, and then our misery is put to an end. The season will finally be over. The 100th season of the New York Giants franchise has been an ugly, disgusting mess, but we're very close to the end. But with the end upcoming, we know that the New York Giants have some major decisions to make on the horizon. Whether we're talking about the general manager position, which we've talked endlessly about, the coaching staff, we've talked a lot about that. Will they stay? Will they go? The quarterback position, that's a big decision. But how about some of these other players on the roster that don't get enough discussion? We want to talk about some of them because the Giants do have some very interesting impending free agents. This is different than last year. Last year they had two big stars who were impending free agents. They had Saquon Barkley and they had Xavier McKinney ready to hit the open market. They had major decisions to make last offseason, and obviously they didn't necessarily make the right decisions. But this go around, the decisions aren't on such star players, but they could be crucial in the long run if they mess these up. So we want to talk about these impending free agents that the New York Giants have, whether that be a Darius Slayton, a Jason Pinnock, and Azeez Ojulari, whether that be Kayvon Thibodeau and his fifth-year option. Should they accept it? Should they accept Evan Neal's? Probably not. We're going to go ahead and just kind of take an early preview at not the free agency class and who the Giants could sign, but whether or not we think they should retain any of the guys they have impending going into this offseason. So an early preview here, and I think this is going to be exciting, Alex, to kind of dig our teeth into and discuss. And obviously this is just the start of this discussion. It's going to evolve over the next few weeks and months as we get to March and we get to free agency. There's going to be a lot of new information to come out, but I think it's fun to take a look early at these players on the roster, who we think should stay and go, who's about to hit the open market. But Alex, how are you doing today? And, when you're looking at this free agency class for the New York Giants, like I said, it's not as great as it was last year. They had some really good players hitting the market last year, but even still, depth is of the utmost importance. We know that. And retaining in-house talent, even if it's not that great right now, sometimes it's good to retain because, hey, maybe you bring in a new coach and they unlock something. So why is this crucial, in your opinion, that the New York Giants make some of these decisions and make them right and actually retain or let some of these guys walk in free agency?
Yeah, man, look, it's a really interesting free agent class because, like you said, there's no Saquon Barkley and there's no Xavier McKinney. And when you don't have two stars, sitting there basically staring Joe Schoen in the face, like, what are you going to do? You're going to let your star safety or your star running back go? Now these decisions are much easier. You can replace these guys with other mid-talent with minimum contracts, basically. We'll go through each one, kind of list them off and what we would do there, our preference. But look, the Giants, I mean, we have a bad roster, man. Like, we have some individual star talent, but we have a legitimate lack of experience and a legitimate lack of depth. The Giants are going to need a couple of big upgrades, right? We'll see what they do in the first and second round. Obviously, we think they go quarterback in the first. The second round should be a receiver, or it should be maybe a defensive back like a corner, but I think they need experience. I think they should probably draft a receiver in the second round, a nice big body guy that can pair with neighbors with some good athleticism, and they should sign a cornerback. I know, like, Charvarius Ward and DJ Reed, they may not be like high-end CB1s, but you just need to give Deonte Banks a running mate. You need to give Deonte Banks a chance to be the CB2 and develop into that CB1. They tried to throw him into the fire and it did not work. They need to reboot. So I do think that right now the Giants do have ways to make this team better. But let's start it off with a couple of these free agents, Anthony. Right off the bat, Darius Slayton. He's gone. Darius Slayton is gone. Why is Darius Slayton gone? Because Darius Slayton wants to be gone. And I don't blame him. Joe Schoen, but he asked for an extension during the offseason. Joe Schoen said, here's $100K in incentives and said, sayonara, buddy. Darius Slayton is absolutely leaving the Giants. If he doesn't, I'd be absolutely blown away. He is going to get 10 to 13 mil per season. The Giants probably go into the second round looking for a receiver they can get for basically next to nothing in terms of cost. So try to find your CB2, or rather your WR2 there, which is easier said than done, but the hit rate on wide receivers in the second round is astronomically high. Anthony, you're a big proponent of that. So what are you doing at Darius Slayton? I imagine you're in the same boat as I am. Draft a receiver in the second round to pair with neighbors and get your quarterback in the first round.
Yeah, absolutely, I am. I mean, I love drafting wide receivers in the second round. I was a huge proponent of it this last April. I'll be a proponent of it again this upcoming April. And it's not necessarily you have to take one in the second round. The Giants could address this position in free agency or via trade. But my main takeaway here with Darius Slayton is he isn't the answer anymore for the Giants' number 2 receiving spot. He's shown that he's not consistent enough and not reliable enough. He regressed this year. And listen, I've called him in the past a very consistent and reliable player, but considering the regression that he just had this season, I don't think you can apply that label to him anymore. His drop rate has skyrocketed. His production has fallen off of a cliff. He's not a player that I think needs to be re-signed anymore. And one of the major selling points on Slayton in the past, Alex, he had such great chemistry with Daniel Jones, and we didn't want to split them up. Well, Daniel Jones isn't here anymore, so that's one of your factors for Slayton, now out of the building. So he doesn't really have as much of a ground to stand on in the building himself. So I think it's fine moving on from him. And, kind of like you said with second-round wide receivers, Alex, we saw a team this past draft hit on a second-round wide receiver. That boy, Ladd McConkey, is nice, man. And we called that. We said he would be a great player. We really liked him, and now he's great on the Los Angeles Chargers. Speaking of which, the Chargers do play tonight, and I am taking a look over at a prop on BetUS. Not McConkey, but the other wide receiver that the Chargers drafted early in last year's draft of 2023. They took Quentin Johnston. He's had some drops problems, as Alex and I were kind of debating before we started recording. He's not been the most consistent player, but the last 2 weeks, he's put up 5 grabs in each game. And BetUS has him at plus 114 for over 3.5 receptions. This is actually a plus expected value play. If you go ahead and you look at FanDuel and other sportsbooks, they have him at minus 105 or minus 115. So at plus 114 on BetUS, this is a great bet. So I'm going to go ahead, lock in that prop and make that bet, and hopefully see Quentin Johnston put up 4 grabs in tonight's game and win me a little bit of cash. So guys, make sure you go check out BetUS, the sportsbook with the fastest payouts in the industry, and use code YouTube150 for a 150% deposit match up to $2,000. But back to the Giants, Alex, what more can we say that hasn't been said about Darius Slayton? Listen, this was a crucial year for him. He wanted more money. He wanted to prove that he could go into free agency after a good season and get more money than he was even offered in the past, and he regressed. He's not going to get the big bag that he expected. I don't think a lot of teams are going to want to pay him after the season that he just had, and the New York Giants should be at the top of the list of teams that don't want to pay him. They should be looking elsewhere, in my opinion, getting younger at the position and getting more dynamic at the position. So I'm definitely good to move on from Darius Slayton and find a new WR2 to pair with Malik Neighbors. And, Alex, one last thing, early name that I'll throw out there for you. I wrote an article about him last week. I told you about him, but I'll mention him on the show. Trey Harris, Ole Miss. Great receiver. I like Ole Miss receivers. There's been a lot of good ones in recent years. A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf. Great players come out of Ole Miss. And Trey Harris, strong body, good route runner, prototypical build for the receiver position. Plus, Alex, quarterback of Malik Neighbors in high school. They're already friends. They've got a great relationship. They used to compete alongside one another. I would love to see the Giants pair Malik Neighbors back with his high school quarterback and have them play wide receiver alongside each other in the NFC East. I think that would be really exciting, and I think those two would drive each other to be even better every single day at practice. So that's going to be my early name to circle right now for April. I like Trey Harris. He should be a second-round draft projection right now. We'll see if he shoots up or down the draft board, but I really like Trey Harris, and I am, like you said, a big proponent of taking a wide receiver on day 2 of the draft.
Yeah, and another guy I like is Egbuka out of Ohio State. And I know some people probably think he'll go in the first round. It's possible he slips. If he does, big body, physical, touchdown machine. So I do like Egbuka as well. We'll look at a lot of receivers during this process throughout the draft. Months leading up to it. We have so much time. The combine will really give us a nice overlook as well. So, next up on the list, obviously Darius Slayton. We're pretty much in agreement here that he is going to leave. Now, the next one on the list is Isaiah Simmons. Now, Anthony and I, we were about to get into an argument about this. We're like, let's save this for the podcast because Isaiah Simmons, I think if you could keep him, sure, but why would he stay? I know, Anthony, you think okay, well, he's good friends with Malik Neighbors. The Giants should keep him for that reason, which is a good argument to make. The question about Isaiah Simmons is we're paying him to really not play, and we need guys who are going to fill roles for us. And he's a player that's he's right there. We're using Muasau as the first option over Isaiah Simmons at linebacker, and then they've been putting Isaiah Simmons in the slot against Zay Flowers last week. I mean, I feel like we could use money better than that. Isaiah Simmons against Flowers, it's a losing game. I don't really know why. He's not a good fit for this defense, in my opinion. If you keep Shane Bowen, I think you let Simmons leave. But if you fire Shane Bowen, you bring in somebody that's going to be able to use a bit of an athletic freak like that a little bit more strategically in sub packages, maybe you keep him and do some unique things with him. But I know you have a differing opinion on some of the points I made.
Yeah, I think, we talked a lot this year about letting locker room guys leave and how that affected this team. And I think that Isaiah Simmons is one of those cost-effective, low-cost locker room guys that you keep, personally. Letting him walk isn't going to kill your team. Retaining him isn't going to kill your salary cap. So if you know that he does a lot in your locker room, he is best friends in the locker room with Malik Neighbors, and he's widely viewed as a leader among the special teams and defensive players, and even the offensive players since Neighbors is friends with him, I think there are more reasons to keep him than to let him go. Now, you're not going to overpay for him, but nobody is. We're talking about a guy, Alex, that the Giants traded a 7th-round pick for last year. There was no market for him. Nobody wanted to trade for him. Nobody wanted to sign him. He sat in free agency this past offseason. The Giants circled back to him later in March, or maybe even outside of March. They eventually came back and signed Isaiah Simmons. He doesn't have a market. There aren't teams that want to pay him. He's not going to get more money than what he's getting right now. What he's getting is what he's got, and he's going to honestly just have to settle into this backup rotational role for his career, most likely. Sure, there's an opportunity for him. Maybe he goes elsewhere. He gets more playing time, and they unlock something in him, and he becomes a better player. Likelihood is he's going to settle into this backup role like he already has, and he's going to continue to play it well and be a good locker room guy. Question is, do we want him to be a good locker room guy for the New York Giants or for another team like the Eagles, the Packers, the Cowboys, the Commanders, somebody else? I'd rather him be a good locker room guy for the Giants. And again, for such a low cost, I think that's worth it. Keep the good locker room guy in there. And also, I just think he's been sorely misused. I just think the Giants don't know how to utilize his skill set. I think there could be something to unlock with Isaiah Simmons. I understand that was the problem the Cardinals had as well. Pretty much nobody has been able to find a way to maximize this guy's talents, except for Wink Martindale. He got quite a lot out of him last year. I think that Shane Bowen's going to be gone this offseason anyway. So if you've got a new defensive coordinator coming in, let him make the decision on Isaiah Simmons. Maybe he has a plan on how to utilize him. Maybe he wants to transition him back to linebacker full-time, take him out of the slot. Maybe he wants to coach him in a new way to take over the slot, or safety. I'm not exactly sure what it looks like for Simmons, but what I do know, it looks like he is a great locker room leader. I want to keep a few of those guys around this time around and not just let them all walk in free agency. So that's my argument for re-signing Simmons on a cheap contract. Now, Alex, there's another player who should, I think, get a cheap contract, but you also made the argument, why would they stay here? They could go play more snaps elsewhere. It's Azeez Ojulari. And my argument is, I don't think he's going to get paid to play more snaps elsewhere. I think teams now look at him as a backup, especially after finishing this season on injured reserve as well, which was the argument that I made at the trade deadline. The Giants shouldn't trade him because he's not going to get paid elsewhere. He's just going to be a backup, and they need backups. So I am a proponent of re-signing Azeez Ojulari. I'm curious how you feel now that we're several weeks removed from the trade deadline. Have you changed your mind at all? Do you still think the Giants should have traded him? I still think they made the right decision, predicated on the fact that they should get a deal done to extend him as a rotational pass rusher.
When it comes to Azeez Ojulari, I think we still should have traded him when we had the chance because, his stock had never been higher than then, and it probably will never get that high again. Every time this guy touches the field, he gets hurt. Every single time. If someone gets hurt, if Tibbs misses time, Brian Burns misses time, you're pretty much guaranteed that Azeez Ojulari is going to get hurt as a rotational third option. And look, if it's like a minimum deal, whatever, like it's a drop in the bucket, I can justify that. But I'm not giving him a dollar over $2 million per year, $1 over $2 million a year, because he cannot stay healthy. And money spent on guys who cannot stay healthy is money wasted to me, right? I'd rather go out and get another backup from somewhere else that at least stays healthy. Like, you can't produce if you're not playing, So, like, what are you going to get? Like, 4 sacks from him in, like, 2 weeks. He's going to make a small impact, then he's going to get hurt and be on IR the rest of the year. That's the Azeez Ojulari experience every single season.
But for a good team, those 4 sacks in 2 weeks are really impactful down the stretch. It's just the fact that the Giants are bad. But imagine if the Chiefs had an injury at edge rusher, and he stepped in and he got those sacks and it helped them win a couple games because they were a good football team. And then sure, he was out for the rest of the year, but that other guy came in healthy and was producing again. Those 4 sacks or whatever that he got in those 2 weeks, very valuable. So I just see there's value in that. Even though I'm not banking on him to play a full year and be the most reliable player, I think having a spark plug who could step in for a couple games, listen, you got to put 90 guys on the preseason roster anyway. I think this is a guy who you signed to a cheap contract. You hope that he stays healthy, and if he doesn't, at least when he's on the field, he'll be a little bit productive for the time being.
Sure. Look, like I said, $2 million, fine. Anything more than that, I'm not paying him because the truth is like, we are not the Chiefs. The Chiefs, 2 or 4 sacks at a peak moment late season. Yeah, that makes a difference for the Chiefs. For us, it's just screwing our draft picks. That's all it does for the Giants. And you know what I mean? Like, this is a situation where he played 3-4 games. Now he's out for the year. Like, what are you getting from a guy? And like I said, $2 million, 1-year deal, sure, sign me up. I don't really care. It's a drop in the bucket. But if you're going to give him $5-6 million to literally land on IR every single season, what are you doing? $5 or $6 million can be applied way more efficiently on a guy that at least stays healthy. Like, if you get 4 or 5 sacks out of a guy that will play every game, will be there and consistent and stop the run at least at a moderate level, I'm okay with that. I'd rather go spend that money that you save on an edge rusher that stops the run at a higher level than Azeez Ojulari and then maybe is a worse pass rusher. But that's just me, because the Giants are getting zero run stopping quality from Azeez Ojulari when he's on the field. The pass rush, it's streaky. He has like a one really good game, then he disappears the next game. He has another really good game, then he disappears the next game. Like, I'd rather a consistent run stopping edge presence than Azeez Ojulari, who's going to get hurt and give you 2 sacks in a game and then disappear for 3 weeks. You know,
I think that's a fair argument. I don't disagree with you on that one, but like Jihad Ward did nothing to improve this team other than he was great in the locker room. Again, another guy that the Giants lost because of the point deal. But if you're talking about a guy who was supposed to be a consistent backup run stuffing edge rusher, at the end of the day, I think that his impact on the season was less than what Azeez Ojulari gave in those few games that he turned up. So
doesn't even matter. You know what I mean? Like, at least he was healthy.
But it don't matter if we're good, and I'm trying to base this under the guise of if we're trying to be a competitive football team next year, we're trying to be a good team. These are the guys that I want on this roster to make those impactful plays down the stretch. Again, realistically, this is going to be another rebuilding year probably. We're not going to be a good football team. But hey, what if we do draft a Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders and they step in and they have the Jaden Daniels effect? Well, then we're going to want a guy like Azeez Ojulari to step in and get 4 sacks in 2 games and then miss the rest of the year, you know? If those 4 sacks are going to win us those games. So that's the frame of reference that I'm trying to keep here and trying to view these guys under.
Right. Yeah, I think that's fair. And listen, I think I would rather than pay Ojulari, pay a veteran, like an older guy, end of their career, guy that can galvanize the locker room, stay healthy, produce a bit. I mean, like if you're looking at a defensive end in this instance, like there's a ton of older guys here that could help. Like Brandon, I know Brandon Graham's probably never coming here, and I honestly just screw him because I don't want him. But like I'm looking at defensive ends right now. I need to be looking at outside linebackers, but like Khalil Mack, I don't know what his price tag will be. He's 34 next season. Matt Judon's going to be 33.
He's not going to leave the Chargers.
Probably not. Yeah, they'll probably keep him. Like they're like, I'm trying to find someone that like makes sense for us, but I'm kind of striking out right now.
Among the top pass rushers, edge rushers who are going to hit the market, we're talking, like you said, Khalil Mack, Hassan Reddick, I don't want anything to do with. Matt Judon's probably going to be too expensive. DeMarcus Lawrence would never come here. Josh Sweat, I could see shaking free from the Eagles. That would be an interesting name, as would Chase Young if he shakes free from the Saints. That could be an interesting name. Those guys give me some intrigue. Maybe a Marcus Davenport. He's on Detroit right now. But outside of that, you get further and further down the list. I mean, then you're talking, do you really want to take a flyer on a Dante Fowler? Do you want to take a flyer on, a Dennis Gardeck? Like,
how about, what's his name? How about Jadeveon Clowney?
Yeah, but I mean, brother is getting old.
He's still productive, though. Like, he's like kind of what you want Ojulari to be. Like, he's not going to stop the run at a high level, but the dude can still rush the passer.
Well, actually, Jadeveon Clowney's calling card throughout his career has been his run stuffing ability. He is a really good.
He's kind of. I feel like he's kind of lost that strength a bit, but maybe not. Maybe, how about like you could bring back Lorenzo Carter for next to nothing, and
I feel like Lorenzo Carter and Azeez Ojulari are the same players, so I would just keep the guy that I have.
I think Lorenzo Carter's a bit healthier than Azeez Ojulari.
We got rid of Lorenzo Carter because everybody labeled him injury prone. So,
yeah,
and I also have to mention. It's a little fishy to me that all these guys on the Giants, oh, my toe hurts, I'm out for the year. Oh, I hurt my elbow, I'm out for the year.
Yeah, right. Astronomical amount of injuries.
Right? And it just feels, it can't be a coincidence to me. I feel like a lot of these guys could be playing through these injuries. I'm not saying that is or isn't the case for Azeez Ojulari. Maybe I'm putting on a tinfoil hat. I don't know. I feel like the Giants are letting these guys rest up knowing that the season is over. So I think that's what's, not that they're tanking, but that's kind of how you do it at the NFL level. If you're hurt, why risk your injury further if you have nothing to play for? I think that's a lot of what's happening. So, just throwing that
definitely not ideal for them. But how about like a guy like Joe Tryon?
Yeah, that's interesting too.
He's interesting.
I mean, listen, there's guys out there you can mix and match rotational pass rushers, but like I said, like I always say, sometimes it's better to keep the enemy that you know than the enemy that you don't. And so I would just retain some of these guys, especially Ojulari is well liked in the Giants locker room, and I think that's something to keep in mind. But next on the list here, we went Slayton, we went Simmons, we talked Azeez. Drew Lock, keep or dump?
Dump the hell out of Drew Lock, bro. Oh my God. Draft the quarterback and sign either Justin Fields or Jameis Winston. Mid-level tier, $10 million, one season, and you just use them as a bridge. It is a true and tried model.
My bold take, though, is that I think Justin Fields is going to get paid a little bit more, and I think he's going to get a 2-year deal. So, but we'll see. I don't know if
So
the
what?
Giants...
So that's a fine though. Like you 2-year deal.
It's fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, look, you give him 2 years, $22 million. You have a really good backup, a guy that can usher in and be a mentor for a young quarterback. Can compete in the near term. Maybe you have an opt out after the first season. And that way, or like a buyout, like the Giants could have an out after in the contract. That way, they can move on. Justin Fields can go and maybe if he has a good performance, can go and try to leverage that into a different deal with a better team or a worse team that they can leverage. You get a comp, yeah, exactly. You get a comp pick. Like you could try to work the system there. But like you want, in my opinion, Justin Fields is a phenomenal locker room guy. Another guy that galvanizes your locker room, and a guy like Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders along Justin Fields is going to be in a healthy, that's a healthy environment to grow, in my opinion. Same thing with Jameis Winston. Healthy environment to grow. And I do believe that's kind of what the Giants have to be doing, facilitating a healthy environment for a young quarterback to thrive. And that involves bringing in a locker room guy or a bridge quarterback. Even Jacoby Brissett was great for Drake May, a guy that's going to fight, ball out when they, I wouldn't say ball out, but I'd say fight, put their best foot forward, never give up on a play, try to ball out. Like just be like, not give up. Like just don't give up. You know what I mean? And like set the standard of what it's like to be a quarterback in the NFL. Like, Cam Ward's like that, Shedeur Sanders like that. They ball. They want to maximize every play. So I think having that mentor, that leader, it is a good thing for them in their development and mental fortitude. So Drew Lock, yeah, sucks. Get out of here. I would rather an actual bridge quarterback.
I'm a huge proponent of a bridge quarterback. I think it's necessary. I even think even if you've got the number one pick and you're drafting a prospect you think is generational, like if you're looking at Caleb Williams, that brother could have used some time to sit and grow before he got into the NFL. He needed a bridge quarterback as well. I'm just a huge proponent of bridge quarterbacks in general. I think it's very, very necessary to the development process of a quarterback. Moving on down the list, Alex, I know you're a big proponent of keeping back Greg Van Roten. Why don't you speak to that, why you want Greg Van Roten re-signed? I do agree with you as well.
Well, Greg Van Roten is a really solid, cheap player, end of the day. Like, it's just as simple as that. I don't want him starting next season, but he can play multiple positions. He's been pretty solid, one of our more consistent pieces this year. He's had 29 pressures and 6 sacks over almost 1,000 snaps, 954. I'm bringing him back, man. He's a minimum contract. He grew up in Long Island. Like, this is a guy that he doesn't probably want to leave. So I bring him back. In worst case, he starts for you at right guard. You can feel okay about that. And best case scenario, you have another starter there, and he's the backup, and he can play multiple spots. He's an insurance policy. Yeah. And one thing the Giants have desperately lacked, is offensive line depth, and he is a perfect depth piece for them.
Yeah, I agree on all points. I really don't have much more to add. That's the exact same way that I feel about Roten. I think, if he needs to start for you, great. I'd love him to be just a quality backup for the Giants, and I think he'd accept that role. Could be predicated, though, on whether or not they bring back Carmen Bricillo. So we'll see. I don't know if he wants to be here. You mentioned Greg Van Roten, Long Island native. How about New Jersey native Jason Pinnock? I think that's a big one to discuss. This is a player who we thought had a lot of potential. This is a player who definitely flashed some things as a starter last year in Wink Martindale's system, has definitely regressed this year in Shane Bowen's system. It's been the case for a lot of the Giants players, a lot of regression this year under Shane Bowen. Don't know how much you attribute that to the offense being so bad, how much that is to Shane Bowen being so bad, whatever. All I know is Jason Pinnock probably should have signed an extension like 8 months ago. He's probably wishing that he did. I don't think he's going to get paid big time money this offseason from the Giants or anyone else. But what do you think? Should they retain him? For me, I wouldn't make it a priority. If it's cheap, I guess I'd bring him back for depth. But I'm really not banking on Jason Pinnock to be a starter for the New York Giants in 2025. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's other options. You could go for like a Justin Reed or a Justin Simmons. Like, there are other strong safeties on the market that may not get a big payday. Reinforcing, if you went out and got signed a CB, signed a safety, and get some experience in that secondary, you can live to see another day. You can be competent next year. But the Giants cannot live with overturning veterans with draft picks all the time. Like, you need to draft a quarterback in the first round. You're not going to draft a safety in the second round. So maybe you're taking one in the third round. You're asking to be a starter. How many times are the Giants going to replace veterans with guys who literally have never played a snap in the NFL before? Like, half our team is rookies. Like, we cannot, teams do not draft first round picks sometimes with the intention of starting them. Why are the Giants drafting third, fourth, fifth round players with the intention of them starting immediately? That is how you build a bad team. That means that all the players you had before them are horrible. Like the guys that you have that have developed over the past. Dane Belton, zero freaking value. You let Julian Love go. You let McKinney go. How many guys are we going to let go before we have to realize that, like, inexperience usually leads to losing, So I'd love to go out and add some experience to the secondary to pair with the inexperience we already have and the lack of confidence we already have, to be quite honest. So, that's what I would do. I think you go out and get a mid-tier strong safety. I would be fine bringing Jason Pinnock back. He's an average player. That's what he is. He's an average player. It allows you to spend more at cornerback. It allows you to maybe go out and get an offensive guard. Maybe allows you to go get a better bridge quarterback to spend there. And you can always backload a deal to the second year with Daniel Jones money coming off the books entirely in 2026. So you do have financial flexibility, but I'm fine bringing Jason Pinnock back. He's not a bad player. He's a fine player. But yeah, like it's a drop in the bucket for him. Like he's really not going to be expensive by any means.
True. I agree. I mean, I don't disagree for sure, but he's not high priority for me.
No.
I think there's better options out there. But at the end of the day, yeah, I'm a proponent of retaining the guys that you have, especially the leaders, and I think Pinnock is one of those. So I would like to bring him back. But we've pretty much talked about the major free agents to take a look at. Like the rest of the guys, I mean, we'd be talking about punter Jamie Gillen. Who cares? I mean, Casey Craig.
I'll bring him back. Whatever. He's fine.
Whatever. Yeah, sure. These are fine. But yeah, let's rapid fire this and talk about the fifth-year options.
Yep.
Is really what I think we need to discuss. Kayvon Thibodeau, I think, is one we need to discuss. We both agree we're not accepting the fifth-year option on Evan Neal. That is a lost cause. We probably don't expect him to turn out. He's played better in recent weeks. Let's clarify that. He has played better football recently, but he has definitely not earned an expensive, fully guaranteed fifth-year option. Has Kayvon Thibodeau, have we seen enough from him to guarantee him a fifth year with this team? And I think that is a major question mark. He's been very hot and cold. He's definitely flashed potential. He has traits that you love to bank on, but the production hasn't consistently been there for him. Alex, what's your take on it? If you had to make the decision now, would you be accepting the fifth-year option on Kayvon?
Well, let's see. Kayvon's fifth-year option would be $16 million. I think I'm picking it up, because you're not going to be able to get a free agent that has the upside of Kayvon for less than that. You know what I mean? Like, I think he knows what it's like to be in New York. He's shown flashes of it. I'm keeping Kayvon because we can't, we can't justify Kayvon and Evan Neal declining both of their options. Like, think about how freaking bad that looks for Joe Shane. Like, he has to pick up Kayvon's option, assuming he's actually kept. But I think Kayvon, if he's kept, I still think you pick it up, because Kayvon has been, like, here's the thing about the Giants, man. You talk about lack of development. You know how hard it is to develop talent when you're changing your coordinators every freaking year? You know how hard it is to develop talent when you're not winning games every year? Kayvon Thibodeau, he's been given multiple defensive coordinators, horrible teams. Like, that guy's been put through the ringer. You know what I mean? Like, he will go to a better team, and I guarantee he will be a productive player somewhere else, because he is the perfect candidate to bounce back. Giants need to pick up his option because of that alone. He will go somewhere else and be dominant. I would bet money on it. So, yeah, I'm picking up his option. I still see the upside there. I think that we haven't tapped into his potential, but they need to get the coaching staff right, man. Partially why I'm fine firing Dable and stuff like that. And, I'd be open to a Mike Vrabel situation, because Mike Vrabel would probably get the most out of Kayvon Thibodeau in his first year.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. In fact, I agree on most of the points you made. And I think the usage of Thibodeau has been wrong throughout the last 2 years for sure. And maybe he is more comfortable playing in a 4-3 system, and Giants keep running 3-4. Maybe that's really all it takes, is just to put him down with his hand in the dirt. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's not. I don't know necessarily what the solution is, but I know that there is one out there, and I'm going to bank on that for one more year, because the potential is absolutely there for the kid. And I think that if you just get the right pieces in place, he absolutely could spark and become a really good player. Right now, he might not be that just yet, but the potential is there, and I'm banking on that for one more year. I will just point this out, though, Alex. This is a quote from a PFF article I just clicked on. Right tackle Evan Neal has allowed pressure on 5.7% of pass plays this season, which would be by far the best rate of his career. His previous best was 10.1% as a rookie in 2022. Not bringing that up to say that I want them to pick up the fifth-year option on him by any means. I just think it's important to note he is playing the best football of his career, and that is an encouraging sign. Not banking on him to be a starter next year either. However, I am intrigued, and if he does get some playing time next year, if he can keep this up, maybe by the time we get to that fifth year for him, he gets an extension. I don't know. It's possible. I don't want to rule the kid out too soon. Like,
you want to know what the money looks like? His 5th year option, you know what that
It's
the price
probably
tag is?
astronomical. What is it?
17.4 million.
Yeah, see, there's no way that you pick that up for him. But I'll make the argument though, like I did
You could
say it in
retain
the
him for much
offseason.
cheaper than that.
I said it in the offseason. The injury could be a blessing for him where he just has to sit for a really long time, grow, get that mental fortitude, and work on some fundamentals, and then step back into the lineup, and maybe he'll be a better player. He has been a better player. Is he $17 million worth? Absolutely not. But is he a player who maybe continues to play well next year, and then you see about extending him the following? Mm-hmm. Possibly now. And I think that's really encouraging. Again, I'm not banking on Evan Neal in any way, but I will say it's nice to see a sign of growth that is encouraging for the future. But yeah, I agree with your points on Thibodeau. I think that's a guy they pick up the 5th year option on, and then if he doesn't play well next year, well, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a very pivotal offseason, though, for sure. And I will also argue those guys with the 5th year option, with the 5th year options, those are guys that you also consider trading if you get good offers on, just because you don't know for sure if they're going to have bright futures. That's what you really should do. Look at Thibodeau and look at Neal and see if they have a market. But I think that pretty much wraps it up. We pretty much went through all of the free agents, so it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds. Again, early preview. We'll be breaking these guys down a lot for the next few months as we lead into free agency and a pivotal 2025 NFL draft and offseason for the New York Giants. But make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts down below. Follow us on social media at Fireside Giants. And make sure you go check out BetUS for 150% deposit match with code YouTube150. We'll catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.